Yeah. So then, because my friends would be like, they would drive 2 different cars up, and then my brother would
Okay. Notebook's out. Who's dead?
Freddy Fazbear.
What? That made very little sense. Your notes are up in front of you. Bertie, put away your laptop.
Do you have my eraser unlocked?
Ben, don't just start using this laptop. He has to put it away. Ben, get out your own paper. What are you doing? See here. Notes out. And I want you right there. Right in front of the class. So I can see your eyes. Right there. Yeah, I want you right there. Last day you were like this. I want you right there. Ben, notes, focus. Ben,
You were 8 grade 6 in 2020, bro.
Ben, we're in science 10. Bertie, focus. Take off your headband. Bertie, do I need to separate people?
No.
Okay, let's go. Okay, last day. We were engaged in a little form of light incense. Well, actually, it's heavy incest. And with incense, probably. Pure breeding, getting together, breeding the children together, showing how that breeding affects further breeding and what the children are looking like. Learning that traits can be dominant. Put away the phone. Wait, put it away. Notes out. Dominant versus recessive, so we can have traits that are recessive that skip generations. Mendel did all this and realized that he had discovered some rules. Because it wasn't a secret that you can inherit things from your parents. If your parents were tallish, then you would likely be tallish. If your parents had certain eye colors, it was more likely that you would have those eye colors. But we didn't know exactly how that happened. We knew things skipped a generation. People would breed animals and livestock. They understood how breed, but they didn't know the specifics of how this worked. He referred to it as hereditary factors. I have to make sure I spell hereditary right because I always spell it incorrectly. I want to put in too many E's. It's Hereditary, right? Hereditary factors. And these are what were passed on from parents to offspring. Or, as I like to call them when they're around and annoying, my spawn. What do we call these hereditary factors? Pardon?
Phenotype?
Phenotype is what you can see. Genotype is what kind you have. The word is in genotype. Genes. Those factors are just the genes. So he was talking about genes even though he didn't know he was talking about genes. So while we were discovering the structure of DNA much later on and figuring out how those are moved around and coded, he was figuring out how they worked. He figured out there was different versions. Not foe, of. When you have different versions of the same type of gene, what was that called? No, that's different versions of organisms. So, right kind of works. Curious. What distinguishes Bertie? What distinguishes a species from another species? So, how do you know that that's a different? That bird is a different species from that bird. How do we define different species?
Like different traits?
Sure, but like all dogs are the same species, even though they're different traits. Yeah, Ben.
Like very prominent physical factors. Like for example, the difference between like a dog and an elephant is like an elephant has a trunk and a dog doesn't.
Right. So like a Great Dane and a little Chihuahua are completely different species.
Okay, well, you can tell
I'm being a little unfair. It is a hard problem, and I'll explain a little why. What were you going to say? Here you go.
No, I was going over the characteristics, but with the Chihuahua and everything.
Chihuahua
You just spoiled my argument.
and a Great Dane. There was I can't remember, it was a short YouTube video or a TikTok or something, and it just had same species, and it had a question mark, and it would just show humans standing beside each other, and it showed all the variations of which you would look at them and go, there is such a variation on the planet. You know, people who are like this tall and people who are like this tall, and just all these people standing beside each other. There's a huge amount of variation in a species. So Great Dane, Chihuahua, same species. So it's not just characteristics, although we often use that, like all elephants have a trunk. But even those rules break down. All mammals, not a species, but it is a general rule, all mammals give birth to live young. Unless, you know, you're a platypus, which lay eggs and is still a mammal. Yes?
Isn't like calling something like a dog or a mammal or a fish just like classifications because there's so many species of like mammals? And would you say that I don't know, because would you say like a different species is just they're super duper different, like a fish and a cheetah are different?
Fish and a cheetah are different, but what makes them different species? Like
I don't know.
a fish and a cheetah are in a room, they play some soft music.
I mean, maybe just their life cycle.
One is the other.
One is the other.
No, it's the other.
Eats the other? Well, there is the praying mantis, which has a really significant problem if you're a male mantis, because in the process of copulation, the female often eats the head of the male partner as sustenance while they're copulating. Interesting way to go. What was the movie? How many of you have seen Shrek? Right. Dragon and donkey, different species or same species?
Different species.
Do they have children?
Yeah.
What are the-
Wait,
Don't they?
I don't know.
They do.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Shrek has, but they don't.
Shrek, the Shrek and not Shrek, the donkey and the dragon get together and they have little donkey dragon children. So in biology, one of the ways that you recognize that species are not separate is that they can have children together. If they can have children together, they're the same species. Biologically, they intertwine, they come out with children, not a different species. So in the Shrek universe, donkeys are dragons. Which doesn't make a lot, I mean, in our universe, hold it, he is a donkey, not a mule, right? It's been a while. Yeah, he says a donkey several times, never mind. His name's Donkey. We do get, the reason this is a hard problem and a bit unfair there
It's
to
like birds, mammals, and
Ben,
fish. That's it.
is if I was to like make a map of the globe, I put the North Pole here, we have the continents going around. There is a species, that's Canada by the way, there is a species of gull, seagull, that lives in Canada and lays eggs. And there's a species of gull over here in like Greenland. Let's call that Greenland. The Earth. Just a top-down view with the North Pole in the middle. Okay, so a weird view. A really true view, but I won't get into that right now. There's a version of gull. It looks different. It has different spots, different colorings. It looks very different. However, those two can interbreed. Are they different species? No, they're the same species. They don't interbreed often because they're by distance, but sometimes one will get blown over there, one will get blown over there, different species. There's a species of gull in Europe can interbreed. Are they? I'll get a question in a moment. Yeah. Are they different species? No. They can interbreed. There's one in Siberia. They can interbreed. Are they different species? No. You go all the way over to here in Alaska, and there's a species of gull that can interbreed with that species of gull. However, these two species cannot interbreed. These two species are different. So they're not the same species. However, every step along the way, they were all the same species. It's like a living fossil chain. If you look at how organisms change over time, we tend to look at it linearly. And then, like, obviously this was the same species of that, which was the same species of that, but when you look at them over time, when you go from here to here, they're different species now. This is one that just exists today in a complete, you could go to all the different gulls. Those may be different species, but every point along the way they can interbreed with each other. Provides an interesting insight into how evolution works through time, because this one's just over geography. Ben, you had a hand up.
So basically, like the factor, like what says that, like the thing that shows that that species are breedable. I mean, species are like the same as that they can breed.
Yeah.
Like, is that what like?
That's what it is.
That shows.
Yeah. So you could imagine.
So like, what would happen if two different species try to breed?
You don't get any progeny. There's no kids, no spawn. Donkeys and horses, different species. They may produce a meal, but the meal is infertile, so they don't continue their species that way. They are different enough. The weird thing is, we have defined some subspecies. We contain, depending on where you are on planet Earth, some relatively high percentage of Neanderthal DNA. So at one point, ancestors of Homo sapiens were living next to ancestors of Homo neanderthalis, and they were getting it on. And so Neanderthals actually live on. We are part Neanderthal. Yeah. We know these factors are genes. And if you want to know if you have a lot of Neanderthal DNA, if you're from Northern Europe, you have the most. There's a school teacher, they found a Neanderthal skeleton. They extracted DNA, and they were like, what if we can find some relatives? They did, at a school teacher who lived in a village like 5 miles from the site of the Neanderthal. Some people never move. Yeah.
How did both of them die?
How did what?
What about the Neanderthal?
How did the Neanderthals die? We don't know for sure. There's competing theories. One, climate change. The world got warmer, and Neanderthals seem to be really well built for cold. The shape of their body is well built to keep heat in. They also, according to their attachment points, had a lot of muscular strength. And one suggestion is they also weren't just quite as smart. So they had tool use, they had culture, but their tool use didn't change for like ages. Whereas other species, like Homo sapiens, that's running around at the same time, their tool use would change quite rapidly in comparison. So they were innovating more, so they just might have been out-innovated. The other not so nice explanation is we may have hunted them to death. There's some evidence that some humanoid species ate other humanoid species. And the last one, given that we have Neanderthal DNA, is that they were sexed out of existence. The growing Homo sapiens population was greater in number than the Neanderthals, and essentially we just engulfed them, had their children, and they became us. Yeah. We just diluted them away. Yes?
So like were Neanderthals like there in the Paleontologic era? Like,
Yeah, they were living like as recently as like 30,000 years ago, which is like within Homo sapiens history.
So like is that also where like the dinosaurs were? Or?
Dinosaurs are much, much older. Yeah. In fact, I think like they often put like a T-Rex with the can't remember. There's different types, and ones that it's often pictured with. We're closer to the T-Rex than a T-Rex is to that dinosaur. The dinosaur, yeah, is like it's a long time. In fact, we are closer. Time is so weird. We're closer to Cleopatra in time than Cleopatra is to the building of the pyramids, which is always wild. There were archaeologists in Cleopatra's time studying the pyramids, and we have their writings about this ancient civilization that came before them. Okay, we know these factors are genes, and they're different numbers. Ones, nobody guessed the names, were alleles. Remember alleles?
Yeah, types of genes.
There you go. We say it was ignored, But it's not like we had modern publishing. It was on a shelf in his monastery. It was rediscovered. And then they were like, hey, this is answering a lot of things. It was, no, I don't have a date for that. His discoveries were summarized into 2 laws. How many of you did mitosis last year?
Yeah.
Did you also do meiosis? Okay. This would be extremely. I'm not going to. You're not going to have to know all the prophase, metaphase, anaphase, but it does rely on you knowing it. Every organism. I'm waiting. We all have 2 alleles for each gene. Your 2 alleles may actually be the same. They may be different. But you always have 2 copies of each gene. Why do you have 2 copies of each gene? Male, you got 1 from your mom, 1 from your dad, 1 from your mom and 1 from your mom, 1 from your dad, 1 from your dad. Modern adjustment means that we will, I think they have done this, in which you took the gametes from one female parent and you put them into the gamete, the egg of the other female parent, and you can have then a fertilized egg that had no male involvement. It's a bit more difficult with the spermatozoa because they're tiny and harder to work with, but that's not going to be too long in coming. Pretty soon, males would be superfluous. For reproduction, we won't even need them. Terrible. We would just clone them. Clone ourselves. Thousands of copies of ourselves. Is it okay? But, okay. When we have those genes, I just said the word. What is the general term for eggs or sperm? Gametes. And a gamete, you can argue that the entire human life cycle is just a way of gametes producing more gametes. We tend to think that our diploid cell that has 2 sets of genes is the dominant form because it exists the longest. But there are species in which their gamete form actually just grows and is part of the natural plant cycle. There's a variety of seaweeds in which you actually couldn't tell the difference between the 2. It grows a plant. And it's a haploid cell with half the number of chromosomes. Each gamete randomly, so there's no particular order in which ones you're going to get from your parents. So you get 1 from your mom, 1 from your dad.
I remember like there were also like zygotes. Like where did
Zygote is after it's fertilized, so that's in the growth cycle of the fertilized
is
cell.
that like the early stages of the baby?
Yeah. Well, baby is after it's born. Fetus just before that. You have embryo, a zygote, embryo. Like there's a whole thing. What process makes the gametes? Mitosis or meiosis?
Oh,
Meiosis. During fertilization,
is asexual. Meiosis is sexual,
right? Yeah. So mitosis divides,
Yeah.
doubles the chromosomes, divides, and you get an equal copy. Meiosis divides twice, so it doubles the DNA, divides, and so you end up with half.
Genetically different baby, right?
Yeah. Because that solves the ancient problem of
Dying from disease and stuff.
yeah. Because if we really did reproduce by cloning, and I was teaching a room full of Mr. Neufelds, one disease that would easily kill me would then instantly kill all of you. It just needs to beat my immune system personally. Because if it can beat my immune system and you're all clones of me, it can beat all of you. So having variation allows you to survive. There is there are people who are naturally immune to the HIV virus. Almost every disease we have, there are people who are naturally immune. So if there was a disease that would wipe out a large portion of humanity, there will probably be survivors just because of our variation.
I forget. Like, how do you bacteria survive?
Sheer numbers. So bacteria produce clones, but there is mistakes. So like humans, you know, we will reproduce. We will have children after a generation. A generation is usually counted about 25 years. So by the time you're 25, average person has had some kids, and then cycle keeps repeating. Bacteria are reproducing, they can reproduce in 20 minutes. So by the time humans have had a couple of offspring, or maybe 10, or maybe 12, the bacteria have produced millions. And so they have a mutation rate. So they get variation simply from numbers. Even a small mutation rate will give lots of variation in that many. Yep.
Are there people that are immune to like cancer?
The problem was with saying, are there people who are immune to cancer? Yes, there are people who are more immune to some types of cancer. But cancer isn't one disease. It's like saying, are there people who are immune to all viruses? And the answer is, I don't think there are anybody. But there are people who are immune to a virus. And there are people with immune systems that are better than one type of cancer. There are immune systems that in which the animal does really well at getting rid of cancer. Sea turtles can exist for hundreds and hundreds of years. They can still get cancer, but they're much better at cleaning up their DNA. Cancer isn't a disease you get. It's from mistakes in your own DNA that either you put there by accident in replicating it, or you got from something else, like exposed to radiation, or from chemicals like smoking or drinking, and other such things. So a sea turtle is actually really good at repairing its own DNA. And not to mention, we actually have a process by which every time your cells reproduce and they duplicate, we haven't mentioned this, a little bit of, does anybody know what the end of the chromosomes are called?
A chromosome.
That's one of them. It
Is
starts with a T.
Is it the part that when more duplicates it like gets shorter?
It gets shorter. The telomeres get shorter. And in the species that are really long-lived, they actually have enzymes that repair them and make them long again. If your telomeres are getting shorter, you might think, oh, well, I just need to get some of those enzymes, I'll repair them, I'll be great. I know a researcher at, when I was taking biochem back at UVic, I asked him, like, if you could, at that time you couldn't make it, but if you could make it, inject yourself, would that allow us to live a really long time? Would you take it? Like, what do you think? And he was like, no, I wouldn't take that in a million years. Because you know what else repairs those and lives forever? Cancer. So you might actually just give yourself super cancer. Cancer is very scary in that is your own cells reproducing, and we have discovered types of transmissible cancer, cells that are so good at growing, they actually can grow in another organism of the same species. We found that in dogs. We haven't yet found a human one, mostly because we're just lucky. One hasn't evolved, but there's no reason why it couldn't. Okay, gametes from both parents. This is called the principle of segregation. In that we have separated them out from each parent. Example, the testes go through meiosis, producing 4 sperm cells. 1 chromosome from each chromosome pair. A reminder, since you should have the background knowledge of meiosis. Let's say that this is a testes. I'm going to skip all of the steps. After it undergoes, from last year, we have 1 testes cell. What do you get out of that? Pardon? How many products?
4.
Nope, not 2, 4. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4 little swimmers. And then what's in each one, given that those are the genes? Those are the chromosomes you started with. What should be in each one of these now?
A sperm.
Those are the sperm.
Oh.
So we had a purple gene and a blue gene. I put in a blue gene. What should be in each one of these?
Oh,
Blue gene.
In every one?
No,
Boy and gal.
1
Wait.
4.
no. One blue gene and then 3 purple genes.
Oop, that was wrong color. What are you doing? 1 blue gene and then 3 purple genes? How come?
Because it's like with the plants, it's like oh actually, yeah.
You're playing along.
Or should there be like just 2 and 2?
2 and 2. Because what happens is that these ones duplicate
Yeah, and then those will be.
and then they divide twice. So you get blue and purple and purple. Give myself a bit more room. We'll call that one the XY. What are you doing? We had the cells in the testes. Where do we find the egg cells? No, that's the testes.
In the ovaries.
Ovaries. So we have the ovary cells. We now have this is a early. It's not quite spermatozoa yet. It has to go through the development. This is not quite an egg yet. It has to go through development. It's a type of stem cell, actually. When it divides, what do you get out of an egg cell? Ready? Divide up the egg. How many eggs do you get?
40.
Do not get 4. Do not get 2.
One.
We get 1.
Because it's an egg.
Because it's an egg. So we get 1 egg.
What if you have twins?
And,
Oh, that's a good question. Do twins share an egg or is it 2 eggs?
ooh,
Some.
I'll do that after. This egg, whoop, that was supposed to change color, should have one of the genes. So it has half the amount. You may get these other little ones that are products. So if you said 4, like, yeah, it does have to divide 4 times. There's the other green, and maybe the pink gets discarded. These are known as polar bodies. Those are discarded, thrown away, get reabsorbed by the body. You get 1 egg with half the chromosomes. This is haploid. This is diploid, to mean it has all the chromosomes. See here? 1 egg. And the reason it does this is that you need all the cytoplasm and organelles. I'm going to run out of room. The egg has to actually be fertilized and grow and have all the stuff. The spermatozoa are just delivering the information. And after that, the rest of the little spermies are all discarded. Poor little spermies. Well, they're also pretty stupid. Half of them get lost. Yeah.
What's the word underpolar?
Bodies. They're little remnant, and they don't always even get made. They may try and pinch off, and it just makes like one lump that has kind of both, and it just gets discarded. But they're the polar bodies. They're just there to make the process happen. So that, but we keep all the cytoplasm in one to get an actual egg. So here, thank you. Do I need to?
No.
Lot 2. Zane, do I need to move you?
Why me?
You keep turning around.
I just turned. I haven't turned anything.
Oh, maybe it's just so in area.
They're the ones left.
What? We barely even.
Genes separate. Independently of other genes. I remember a lot of these were developed by Mendel studying pea plants. And he would notice, like, just because it's a dwarf pea plant doesn't mean that its seed pod can't be yellow. You can have a tall one with a yellow seed pod. You can do it. And all of them corresponded independently to different genetics. Most of genetics since then have been showing the areas where this is not true. If you have genes on the same chromosome, they might actually get passed together. But it's true enough for enough places as we start here and then work in the exceptions afterwards. If you have to say don't touch me, then I think you guys need to move. Yeah. Yeah. See here, go there. And then let's, Timmy, move one over.
That's the allele.
Yeah.
At all. Is that the allele?
The allele, the gamete receives.
What does that say after receives?
Does not.
Oh.
So does not influence other genes. Yes, sir.
After gamete.
Receives. Here, should I text recognize it?
No, it's not gonna work.
There we go. Of course it works. Because my handwriting's so neat.
Receives what?
It don't work. It don't work.
It's a P work.
That one may not have worked. Again.
Sipping water.
Stipple? Yeah, I think I'm going to undo that one. Because then I have to retype it. That's going to be annoying. Why is it not doing it? Edit. Oh, I can't. Oh.
Now it's too broken.
It won't let me undo it.
Dirty stroke. Yeah, I see that guy around there. Dirty stroke.
What does that say?
Genes separate independently of other genes. The allele the gamete receives does not influence other genes.
Oh,
What did you thought it said?
I thought they were like separate.
There we go. Let's ignore that.
There's no A.
No. So for example, if you have tall and dwarf for pea plants. And the parent is tall, but it has a mixture of genes. And let's say, let's go all the way back. What were the other attributes a pea plant could have? Seed color yellow was dominant. So let's make this one yellow. Let's not make it literally green when I'm saying the word yellow. That would seem to be confusing. Divide those up into the four gametes you would get from this parent. If you have that parent, what are the 4 gametes you could possibly get?
Like parent, like singular?
Your gametes are going to be TTYY?
Wait, no, wait.
Because then you have the same number of genes. That'd be terrible. Yeah?
Does lowercase yellow mean it's green? Like that?
So, yeah, lowercase means it's green.
Why don't put green then?
Because we use the same letter for the dominant and the recessive.
Oh, I like that. Why don't
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So lowercase y means green. In this case, there are like if we had later on, you'll have more than one. So maybe you could have yellow, green, and purple. And green and purple are both recessive. You could then make them both different lowercase letters. We'll do that too. But for this is the simplest case. We only have 2 possibilities. We'll do that. Okay, Ariel, give me one of them. One of them.
TTY.
2 T's?
Yeah.
So the child.
It's a TY.
Pardon?
It's a TY.
It's not 2 Y's.
Oh.
Did you say 2 Y's or T Y's?
TY.
Oh, what kind? Uppercase, lowercase?
Uppercase T with lowercase y.
Sure, that would work. Uppercase T, lowercase y. That is one possible gamete. So we have done that combination.
What?
Timmy, what would the other combination be? Pardon? Capital Y with which? I did miss the first one. Capital T, yeah. So there's that combination. What's that one? Yeah.
Lowercase t with lowercase y.
Yeah. So we have that combination. And then what's the last one?
Uppercase
Zoe?
y.
David? What's left?
I would say it would be lowercase t. Wait, what? No, uppercase. No.
No, we've used uppercase twice.
Lowercase.
Oh no, uppercase y, lowercase. No. Yeah, lowercase y.
Lowercase G, uppercase Y.
So I've done.
No,
Please don't call
uppercase
out.
y, Lowercase t.
Say it again.
Uppercase y, lowercase t.
Uppercase Y, lower. Now we put the uppercase Y second, because that's the way we started off there, and then lowercase t. Yeah, right. Yeah.
What? No, I thought it was uppercase y, lowercase t.
Uppercase Y, lowercase t. Yeah, that's what that is.
Well, why would the t go in front of the y?
Because it's in front here.
Oh, I thought it was dominant goes in front of recessive.
Oh, those are different genes. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
So, uppercase goes in front of recessive if they're the same allele. Those are completely different types of genes. Those are height and color. Okay. I'm glad we did that example. Good? Birdie? Good? Good. Okay. Last page definitions. Then we'll see how much we have time for in terms of next activity. We're just going to define dominant or recessive. Dominant, when one allele masks the expression of another allele.
Wait. What's the second word?
Masks. I didn't mean to make it a capital M, but that's what came out. and we give it an uppercase letter. Do you know why they're called uppercase and lowercase? Yeah. You can put any example there you want. Brown eyes is an example of a dominant trait often, although it's not perfect. Pardon?
That's because on the original printing machines, the uppercase letters were on uppercase.
Literally on the uppercase, yeah. Because when you're putting together, you're going to need the lowercase more often, and so you want them right by your hands, and whenever you need an uppercase, you do that. Kind of like how, do you know what that symbol is?
Say.
Yeah, but what is it?
Which
It's a floppy disk. It's an original floppy disk, which means save. And now there are people who have never seen a floppy disk that know, oh, that's just the save icon. Uppercase and lowercase is that. We still call it that, even though printing presses like that haven't existed for a very long time. Other definitions, recessive. Well, if dominant masks an allele, what does recessive do? It is masted. What is one word that means that you've been... Ooh, I like eclipsed. Engulfed would be good. I think last year we used hidden, but eclipsed, the one going in front of the other. I like that. And if you use tallness there, then we would use shortness here. If you use brown eyes there, we'd have blue eyes. Always with a caveat, eye color doesn't strictly follow Mendel's laws, although it often does well enough.
Wait, what does that first one say? I like this.
Recessive?
Yeah, recessive.
That should be an R. And what kind of letter is it given? Lowercase. Here's some examples of traits. I haven't filled in the last one, I know, but these are things you can check on your parents. Ask your parents for permission first and tell them why, because sometimes people find information about themselves they didn't know. Because if you look at your parents and they have two recessive traits and you have the dominant trait, you may have been adopted. So dimples are dominant, no dimple is recessive. If you have a free earlobe, dominant. If it just goes straight in, you don't have an earlobe, that's a recessive trait. Can you roll your tongue? Dominant trait. Non-roller, can't roll it at all, recessive. Can you fold? Or can you not fold, recessive?
Wait, like
Put your fingers together. How are they doing that? There it is. Do they point away from each other, or do they go all the way together naturally? Bent is dominant, straight is recessive. Mine are a little bit bent. This particular one, if you have your right ring finger is longer than your index finger, so if this finger is longer, that is a dominant trait. If you have it being a little bit shorter, that's recessive. This is also very interesting because that particular thing is dominant recessive. It's also affected by the amount of testosterone you get access to in the womb. And there's a geneticist who says if he measures the ratio of your fingers before the race, he can predict who's going to win the race simply by that measurement. He's right about 70% of the time, which is much higher than we would expect by chance. And he says because that reflects how your body grew in the womb in terms of testosterone, and that affects how your muscles are made. So not purely genetics. Oh, I should say, this is reflecting a lot of biological determinism. If you have this gene, you will have this trait. All of these traits can be modified by some degree in your environment. So whether or not you have a cleft chin, accident, nutritionally deprived upbringing can change the expression of tons of traits. Some of them are very, very genetically defined, some less so. So we're picking ones that have a lot of genetics to it, but all of these can change. I mean, obviously, you can just shave your head and then you don't even know that you have a widow's peak. Widow's peak is dominant, so let's go back to here. Fill this in. Widow's peak is a dominant trait. And a straight hairline is recessive. Now,
A widow's peak, which is dominant, right?
pardon?
You would have a widow's peak.
You would have if you inherited each one of those, you would have a widow's peak. Because if you have both genes, you're going to express the dominant gene.
I actually last year I had a gap tooth. My teeth were so gap toothed that like 2 points. Like not just this.
Yeah.
All of it. Just diagonal.
I do recall when like braces first became popular, really popular, and plastic surgery, people were legitimately worried, like writing letters to the editor. But if people fix their teeth, then they won't know when they meet someone how ugly their children are going to be. And I was like, okay, but they'll just get them braces if they need it. Like, what are you worried about? Yeah, but people have this weird thing that if you're you can't change your biology. Obviously, the environment can change tons of things, and there's nothing wrong with having that in your teeth. We have an activity. Some people are away, and I think with 15 minutes on the last day, I'm not expecting that it would be great right now. So if you want to work quietly on something, there's a video I'm going to check if I have, I might show it, but if you can work quietly on something in the last 15 minutes, the time is yours. But you have to be here, and you have to be working, you can't go. Okay?
Yeah, sure.
Can you work quietly? Yeah.
And also may
How we play Tetris?
Yeah.
Oh no. Thank you.
You do? We're here, do?
How's chemistry going? Yes. Have you guys done any molds yet? I'm assuming you have. Yeah. Good. Because if you like math, once you hit that area, it's a little easier. Oh, well, okay. Right, the balance and everything equation, the reaction. Oh, it's being. Okay. What's the reaction?
Oh,
aluminum and I can tell.
Because it just says reacts with aluminum, but I don't know what else is there. So, Eric?
Sorry.
It's like you can like join whatever.
I guess it would work.
Oh, well,
Okay, just work
okay, you already have it.
And it's
Yes,
easy to
but-
post, you can like do like,
Yeah, we can-
it looks so fun.
How do we know the dried
Oh, well,
What is, see my
you were asking me what number 5 or 6?
6?
Oh, how does the number of moles with the answer instead?
What is it?
Assuming the moles of ACL 2 to 1 ratio of moles per percent, how many moles of lead did you have at the beginning of the process? So you measured the mass of the dry product,
Yeah.
and you calculated the number of moles.
Yeah.
Where is that?
Yeah, I was thinking this is start.
This. This is the amount.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I started.
What? What's the concentration of
It's just on the street.
It's
Good.
1
No.
or 3 moles per
It's not
liter.
like this.
Okay,
And then we converted it to liters
Yeah.
and then
No,
multiplied
you
it.
just told me like you have to be time.
but if
Which
it's
is what she told us.
if it's moles per liter,
Yeah.
like you want to just multiply by the
Like
liters.
you do your recitation zone.
Yes.
And then if
Okay.
That's what we did. We converted
Because
it
like you have to
to
do that.
milliliters. So we converted it to
Yeah,
liters
but
and then.
I may be just confused about your units then, because you have liters times moles. That gives you a mole liter, which is liters.
I just need to.
Is it 3 moles per liter? Cancels the cap.
There's no.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, okay, so that is 0.0084, and what is that's the amount of HCl, and it's in a 2 to 1 ratio, so you should have half that amount, 0.0014 of the dried product. How much do you actually have of the dried product?
I also like you don't really
Pass the bar for
you don't
dinner.
really need a follow the reason why. It's not good break and there's not great shows.
Yeah. Yeah.
Point six
Like
grams.
if
Right.
I fold if I fold
So,
came from the
and so what moles is that?
It's only the break. I don't need a break.
We didn't have to count.
It's only break like a 6.
Maybe we did, but I haven't gotten it.
Yeah.
Well, you're doing this question, I saw blank questions up above, are you supposed to calculate it up there? Like in here, determine the moles of copper, identify the precipitate, calculate the moles of precipitate in there.
No, it doesn't say that we have to calculate that. There's the question.
Well, to answer that question, you need to know it.
Okay.
Because go back to the chemical equation.
Who tracks this whole building? Yo, United States, UK, Austria, shit.
So, yeah, it's not balanced, but if you were to balance it, you'd need a 2 in front of the HCl, right?
There's like 10 turns.
So,
We score running like this.
No, because I have time to do those climbing.
is it Cu CO3?
Take that
Yeah.
away to the
Okay.
training camp for nationals and I think
And how much of this?
Of what? 0.6 grams of the dry cake.
Right? So, and you got 0.6 grams.
Yeah.
So, but if you have 0.0028 moles of this,
That's half of what we have, right? Because that's, we have 0.0084 moles.
of this,
No, of
I decided like, you know,
of the HCl used.
oh, the calculation you showed me, I thought it said something else. You have 0.
if I don't like it and I don't get anyone, but within that years, then I'm just gonna quit and commit myself to short.
0.0084.
Okay. So if you have that, how much of that should you have? If this is in a 2 to 1 ratio.
We should have 0.3, or no, 2 to 1.
2 to 1,
So then we need more of the HCl.
right? How much more?
Times 2.
Times 2. So how much of the copper carbonate should you have? Half. What's half of that? What's half of 8?
8.
Yeah, what's half of 8? 4. What's half of 4? 2. So you should get 0.0042.
They tend to look like it's meant to be like.
So I didn't actually understand what the question was asking. Probably didn't read it that close. But that's how much you got, right?
Yeah.
So does that match?
No.
I don't know. It's in grams. You need to put it in moles.
Okay.
You can't compare grams and moles. You got to put them in the same unit.
Okay.
Alejandro, you went like the.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it is. Because the amount of grams doesn't tell you anything about the number of atoms. It has a density. But if you put it into moles and you know you were supposed to get that, you can check. Is it close? Because it's only one significant figure. So you're hoping you get 0.004. That'd be perfect. If you convert it and you get too much, like let's say it says like 0.1, then you know you have huge amounts of contamination. You got way too much. Something happened. If you've way too little, then you didn't get all of the product. Either it didn't all react or some of it spilled. Although most error, we assume no human error. What could have gone wrong? Was some left in the paper? Like the most common cause for having too much is you didn't dry it thoroughly enough, and there's still some water there. How much is that in moles?
Just do it.
It's like the mass, like 0.6 divided by the
Yeah. Yeah. 0.6 grams times 1 mole over whatever number of grams copper carbonated.
So it's 0.6 divided by.
Wait, what's the? 0.0.
Please don't. Oh, okay. I'll just.
0.059.
Yeah.
That's now if that number is correct, which I don't know, I'm just taking your numbers, then that number is bigger or smaller than that number?
Bigger.
Way bigger.
That was Law's name.
So contamination, too much water, I don't know. Double check that that number is calculated correctly from you haven't made like a volume error, because that's bigger like by a factor of 10. You could move that right over. Because if that was 0.05, it's actually kind of close. But if this is 0.004,
Oh, it is 0.005.
oh,
Sorry.
oh, then you're decent.
Okay.
Like, this is 1 sig fig, right?
Yeah.
So that number is plus or minus 0.1. That's what sig figs mean, right? So that means this could be much bigger or small. That's points. Hold it. We didn't put. I put that there. That's not where that belongs. That's the answer. That as moles.
Yeah.
If there's another 0 there, that's within experimental error. Like if because you'd round that to 6.
Yeah.
I mean you're probably decently close. I mean you're 0.02 off, but for a high school lab with the equipment that you're using, that's a decent result.
Okay.
Yeah, well done. That's good lab skills. Give yourself a pat on the back.